All right, greetings. Welcome back to Blackbird News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Good to see you. Welcome. Shout out to Becky, who is a new subscriber on Substack. Thank you, Becky, for your subscription. Very generous. Thank you. Yes, you can go over to Substack and subscribe for free. Absolutely, everything is free. It's open to everybody. The streams will be open to everybody. By the way, sorry for the confusion, but tomorrow's show will be at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific. Regular time, 12 p.m. Pacific. I thought I was going to have to move it. I don't have to move it. It was just a last-minute schedule change. So please come over. Tomorrow is a Substack only stream at 12 p.m. Pacific. That's the regular time. Come on over. I'm sorry if there was any confusion or if I messed up anybody's plans. I prefer to do it at the regular time. I just was going to move it tomorrow because I thought I had something going on. All right. I've got so many things. And we'll try to do our best. Whatever I don't get through today, I'll bring back for tomorrow because I have a feeling I'm not going to get through it all today. From Paul Beckwith, atmospheric rivers have become more frequent, larger, etc., etc. And we know this. This is true. If you've lived in California or Southern California for the last 3 or 4 years, it's painfully apparent. This is not normal. This is not how California weather usually goes. But it's not just California. It's all over the planet. That just regular old rainstorms have become major flooding events, 500-year, 1,000-year flood events. This is just absolutely apparent. It's what's happening. It doesn't make sense that somebody is making all of these things happen. I know that people want to, there's just too much energy in the system. Are they making other things happen? Sure. But just not every single flood and atmospheric river and extreme rain event on the planet is not Dr. Evil. Sorry. Anyways, from atmospheric rivers have already become more frequent, larger, and moister during the 1980-2023 timeframe. Extreme atmospheric river conditions have intensified at a faster rate than the mean. It's another sign that poleward moisture and energy transport is increasing. We're not going to read the whole thing. I mean, you get the basic idea. That's the summary of it. Atmospheric rivers are expected to strengthen in a warming climate, largely due to the thermodynamic moistening effect, right? Evaporation causes more water moisture, water vapor in the air that produces bigger rainstorms, more intense hurricanes, etc., 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 etc. Here's an interesting video. Before we get there, uh, where is it? This is what this is producing, all this moisture in the air, excess moisture in the air. Scenes like this, which are daily and not just one spot in the world, but several spots in the world, look like this every single day, all the time, all year long. Current situation in Kampong Pasir Tebrau, Malaysia. And if this happens enough, I don't know how, right? Because people have to recover from this kind of a thing. If it happens enough, it really affects. Oh, that reminds me. had something else to play, but I forgot to grab it. This is in the same vein. Here. And what this lady says is absolutely true. And I remember people citing insurance companies over excess deaths after COVID and the vaccinations. I saw people citing, they cite insurance companies over other issues, but never this, And what this woman is saying is absolutely rock solid.
I would love to say that I changed my dad's mind about climate change.
So her dad was a skeptic on climate change.
That his beloved daughter, who he talks to every week, finally brought him around. And he has come around on climate change, but that's not what changed his mind. The thing that changed his mind was insurance companies. The fact that every insurance company has a climate scientist on staff, and insurance companies are all pricing in climate risk. There's no financial incentive for them to do that if it wasn't real. If it wasn't real, another insurance company could come along, undercut the market, and offer insurance at much cheaper rates, but they don't do that because they know that it's real. And my dad was like, well, if capitalism says it's real, it's real.
If the greediest people in America think it's real, then that tells me something. Genuinely tells all of us something about this.
I would love to say.
And that's true. It doesn't make any sense. For insurance companies are pulling out of certain markets, Florida, California, just not offering insurance at all. It kind of goes against the business model because the business that they're in is selling insurance, offering insurance. If the risk factor is so high that it doesn't make business sense for them to offer insurance, something doesn't make any, that doesn't make any sense, right? Anyways. All right, now we're going to switch gears. By the way, the oil companies all know about climate change, climate risk, and all that kind of good stuff. And instead of they've done their very best to create propaganda that gets people to question whether what they're doing is destroying the planet or not. In the same way that other large industries create propaganda to convince people that what they're doing is actually good for them or not hurting them. Or going after lawyers. And we're going to talk about, they're going after environmental groups, but going after lawyers who win judgments against them for destroying the environment. Yeah. Creative experiments. I've been saying for 5 years, it doesn't matter if you don't believe in climate change because your insurance company does. So does Donald Trump, by the way. They built a seawall around his golf course in Scotland because of rising sea level. Why would you do that if climate change wasn't real? Why does Miami flood out now constantly on days when there's no rain? Because the water levels are higher than they used to be. And it's a big issue. And they have a whole program started by Obama to buy people out of their houses in Florida. Or help people relocate in Florida. Why would they do that? Anyways, this is an interesting little mini doc about, and I never knew this. Maybe this is new to you. Maybe this is old news. Apparently the Mossad tried to assassinate H.W. Bush, which is interesting because he used to be the head of the CIA and he was also reported to be in the vicinity when JFK was assassinated. People have implicated H.W. Bush as being, in the area, maybe involved with or having knowledge of what was going on the day of the JFK assassination. So it's interesting that he actually had the tables turned on him. It's interesting. Here we go.
In 1991, the Israeli Mossad had a plan for assassination on former President George H.W. Bush. This came from a former Israeli Mossad agent himself, Victor Ostrowski, in his 1994 book, Other Side of Deception. If you haven't heard of Victor Ostrowski, I highly urge you to read his 1990 publication, By Way of Deception. Israel actually tried to have the book banned in the United States until an appeals court threw out the ban. After this book was published, the government of Israel put out a massive smear campaign against Ostrowski. His Wikipedia is one of the most edited pages, with pro-Israel interests discrediting his employment in the Mossad and labeling him as having an erratic personality and vivid imagination using sources from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. In 1991, former President George H.W. Bush outraged Israeli leaders and AIPAC by not issuing Israel a $10 billion aid package in loan guarantees until they would stop using U.S. money to build settlements in Palestinian land. This then caused a firestorm between the Israelis.
Did y'all hear about, or I don't remember this. I mean, I was younger and I was paying attention to the news, but I don't remember him denying them their aid package. Because they were using the money to build settlements in Palestinian land. Very interesting.
Israeli government and the White House. Former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir called it a major explosion, and an Israeli cabinet member even accused the U.S. president as being an anti-Semite and a liar. President Bush then threatens AIPAC by stating he would veto any legislation that is passed by Congress. I'm up against some powerful political forces. We've got one lonely little guy down here doing it. The reason he was so set on not giving the funds is because there was a Middle East peace conference in Madrid of that year, and he knew the prospects of billions of dollars of U.S. aid funding to illegal Israeli settlements would certainly alienate the Arab delegates. Follow me for part 2. This gets absolutely crazy. By 1991, former Israeli Mossad agent Viktor Ostrovsky fled to Canada, and he told Canadian officials that secret intelligence he had been receiving suggested strongly that the Mossad's hatred of former President George H.W. Bush and support for Vice President Dan Quayle may lead to an assassination attempt on the president's life. This excerpt is coming from a 1992 article written by Paul Finley, former Republican congressman of Illinois. This information was then relayed from a Canadian official to former Republican congressman of California, Pete McCloskey. Take a listen to this.
George Bush outraged the American Jewish community, if you recall, by taking a position that our aid to them, $10 billion, could be conditioned on a reasonable Israeli position toward a Mideast peace. Viktor Ostrovsky spoke out and said that the President of the United States is subject to the possibility of assassination by a Mossad hit team when he goes to Spain at an international convention. By that willingness to speak out, he may have saved the life of the President of the United States.
The intelligence agency that I belong to, the Mossad,
That guy's one of those people that whisper when you talk. Okay, sorry.
believes in its right as an organization to exist. And it will do everything in its power to maintain power.
Not only that, Ostrovsky told McCloskey that the Mossad wants to do everything possible to preserve a state of war between Israel and its neighbors, assassinating President Bush if necessary. A public relations campaign is already underway in both Israel and the United States to prepare for public acceptance of Dan Quayle as president. Follow me for part 3. It was not until his 1994 book where Ostrovsky goes into this more detail, stating a certain right-wing clique in the Mossad regarded the situation as a life or death crisis and decided to take matters into their own hands to solve the problem once and for all. They believed that then Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir would have ordered what they were about to do if he hadn't been gagged by politics. This right-wing faction within the Israeli Mossad crafted a plan to assassinate former President Bush on October 30th, 1991 at the Madrid Royal Palace Hotel while he would be out of his element and then blame it on...
So that's never what intelligence agencies do, is go rogue and just do their own thing. Because...
3 Palestinians. He goes into even more detail. The 3 Palestinian extremists were taken by a Cadone unit from their hiding place in Beirut and relocated incommunicado in a special location.
Yeah. Extra bullet, he would have been a good weak puppet for them, but preparing the American people to accept him as president, I think, was a stretch. I think that would have been a very big stretch because he had a very low opinion in the public mind.
In the Negev desert. The Mossad then puts out fake threats against the president as if they're coming from Palestinian militant leader Abu Nidal. Several days before the event, it was leaked to the Spanish police that the 3 terrorists were on their way to Madrid and that they were probably planning some extravagant action. Since the Mossad had all the security arrangements in hand, it would not be a problem for this particular clique to bring the killers as close as they might want to the president, then stage a killing. In the ensuing confusion, the Mossad people would kill the, quote, perpetrators, scoring yet another victory for the Mossad. Wow. Former Israeli Mossad agent Viktor Ostrovsky and Congressman of California Pete McCloskey knew that if the story leaked to the American public prior, the Israeli Mossad would less likely go through with it. Congressman McCloskey then met with the Secret Service and connected Ostrovsky to also meet with the Canadian Secret Service. After the president had landed in Madrid, the American embassy there received a bomb threat on the phone and that a section of the embassy was evacuated while the president was in the building, but the rest of the plan was called off. The 3 Palestinians that were supposed to be used as potsies were never let out of the holding facility in the Negev. Later, they were transferred to the Ness Ziona research facility where they were terminated. After this 1991 assassination plot, there was a second assassination plot against former President Bush in April of 1993 on his visit to Kuwait. Kuwaiti authorities arrested 17 people allegedly involved in a car bomb plot to kill George H.W. Bush. Through interviews with suspects, the FBI established that the plot had been directed by the Iraqi intelligence service. In retaliation, President Clinton 2 months later ordered the firing of 23 cruise missiles at Iraqi intelligence service headquarters in Baghdad. This is very well known as the 1993 cruise missile strikes that many of us have heard of.
Okay. That's a wild story. You're not even safe if you're a friend of Israel and you're the head of the CIA or former head of the CIA and you're president of the United States. You're still not safe. The guy that probably had a hand in helping Israel take out JFK was still not safe. But, don't piss off the major or whatever, however that line goes. All right, switching gears again. Y'all may have seen this on, I've only seen really one other channel play this video, but this is Greg Reese. This is a really interesting video here. Let's watch it. I don't know if we can get sound here.
Corrado Malanga from the University of Pisa and Filippo Biondi, involved in radar and remote sensing research with the University of Strathclyde, published peer-reviewed research in 2022 via MDPI entitled Synthetic Aperture Radar Doppler Tomography Reveals Details of Undiscovered High-Resolution Internal Structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Their research was conducted using SAR data, synthetic aperture radar, along with proprietary software developed by Filippo Biondi that transforms the radar signals into phononic information, which allows for the detection of millimetric vibrations. This cutting-edge technology is capable of revealing underground structures invisible to traditional methods and revealed internal structures never seen before. Having established their expertise in using SAR to explore pyramid structures non-invasively, a recent press release on their current project was released last Saturday. This March 15th press release summarized the key findings in the team's research of the second largest pyramid of the Giza Plateau, known as the Khafre Pyramid, and what they found was astonishing. The analysis of dozens of tomographic SAR images obtained from different angles enabled the 3D reconstruction of inside the pyramid of Khafre and deep beneath the surface of the plateau. Near the base of the pyramid, 5 identical structures are seen, connected by geometric pathways. Inside each of these are 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. Below these 5 structures are 8 cylindrical structures, which appear to be vertical wells, hollow inside, and surrounded by descending spiral pathways. These 8 vertically aligned cylindrical structures, arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters, where they all merge into 2 large cubic structures, measuring approximately 80 meters per side. The entire structure extends approximately 2 kilometers beneath the surface and extends beneath all 3 pyramids of the Giza Plateau complex. Mainstream Egyptology tells us that the Giza pyramids were tombs for pharaohs Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, and that they were built around 2500 BC using ramps, sledges, and levers. But the redundant mathematics in their construction, which include pi, the golden ratio, and the speed of light, along with the testimony of today's expert architects, suggests that the official story does not hold up. The massive underground structure revealed by the recent SAR data shows what appears to be a mechanical or functional system, and this has been hypothesized in the past. Nikola Tesla believed that the pyramids could harness Earth's natural frequencies. This arguably inspired his experiments in wireless energy transmission and scalar waves. In the Giza power plant, Christopher Dunn argued that the Great Pyramid was a power-generating machine using resonant and acoustic forces to convert mechanical stress into electricity. In the Giza Death Star, Joseph Farrell proposed that the Great Pyramid of Giza was a weapon of mass destruction using a type of physics that he calls paleophysics to focus energy as a scalar weapon. The cylindrical wells could be conduits for energy or sound waves, and the cubic structures might serve as energy storage or stabilization units, akin to components in a large-scale weapon or generator. And the detection of vibrations in the pyramid's internal structures reflects all of these ideas. The Khafre project hopes to plan an excavation in order to discover more about this underground structure. But history shows that this will be very difficult to get approval for. Greg Reese reporting.
Okay. That's interesting. OGRP, yeah. That actually reminds me of the Y-Files. They did a pretty good video about there being a pyramid in Alaska, like an underground pyramid that is supposed to be an energy source for extraterrestrial visitors. I don't know. It was a pretty fascinating video. I know. Which lines up with this one, that the pyramids are an energy source, and connected to alien life. So I don't know. It makes my brain swell with possibilities. Oh yeah, I love the Y-Files too. Yeah, they're pretty good. I haven't watched any recently, but pretty dang good work. Let's keep going. All right. I'm trying to get to this Greenpeace story, and I will right now. What the heck happened? Greenpeace was hit with a where is it? Hold on. That's not right. Here we go. That's not right. No. What the heck? Hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. I don't know what's going on here. Please. We'll get to this in a better. Where are we? Well, Greenpeace was ordered to pay $660 million in Dakota Access Pipeline case. What the? Let's see. I want to find this in a better location. Can you believe this nonsense? I can't. I don't want to. Here we go. Greenpeace ordered to pay more than $660 million over Dakota Access Pipeline protests. They don't want you to even protest. Remember remember this happened under Obama. And he just let the cops kind of beat up the protesters, hose them down, knock eyes out, injure them grievously. And then he was like, oh, maybe I want this to stop. Greenpeace ordered to pay more than that was a terrible Obama impression, by the way, more than $660 million over Dakota Access Pipeline protests. Jury on Wednesday ordered environmental campaign group Greenpeace to pay. I'm not going to read the same thing over 4 times. It marks an extraordinary legal blow for Greenpeace, which had previously warned that it could be forced into bankruptcy because of the case. Greenpeace, huh? This sounds a lot like the decision that went against Steven Donziger. And it's interesting. I see a lot of alternative news channels ignoring or not covering the Steven Donziger case or covering this case. I see a lot of not covering of this case. A jury on Wednesday ordered environmental campaign group Greenpeace to pay. God dang it. They just make you read the same thing over and over again. In damages to Texas-based oil company Energy Transfer, the developer of the Dakota Access Pipeline, a 9-person jury in Mandan, North Dakota, reached a verdict. After roughly 2 days of deliberations, the outcome found Greenpeace liable for hundreds of millions of dollars over actions taken to prevent the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline nearly a decade ago. Marks an extraordinary legal blow for Greenpeace, which had previously warned that it could be forced into bankruptcy because of the case. The environmental advocacy group said it intends to appeal the verdict. This case should alarm everyone, no matter their political inclinations. Greenpeace U.S. Interim Executive Director Sushma Raman said in a statement published Wednesday, it's part of a renewed push by corporations to weaponize our courts to silence dissent. We should all be concerned about the future of the First Amendment, and lawsuits like this aimed at destroying our rights to peaceful protest and free speech. Absolutely, this is an issue. And this is what they are trying to do. Don't bring a case against the oil company or the oil giants. Don't protest what the oil giants are doing. Don't protest what your politicians are doing to you. Or we'll put you in jail, or we'll take away your money, or we cut off your bank account, or it put you, whatever. And worse than that. It's part of I read that. Greenpeace has described Energy Transfer's case as a clear-cut example of slaps, referring to a lawsuit designed to bury activist groups in legal fees and ultimately silence dissent. SLAP is an acronym for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. And they do that to individuals too. Just I think Ryan Christian is suffering something like a slap. I think he's had 2 legal cases brought against him. It's just very scary indeed, right? Because they just force you to fight these cases. If you don't have any money, it can put you out of business, or it can force you to probably come to a little agreement, like Alex Jones, right? He had a pretty big judgment against him, and all of a sudden became something of a Trump sympathizer. I'm sure he was on some levels before, but he's really come around, that Alex Jones. He's really walked back a lot of his anti-establishment positions. Let's see. Yeah, did Greenpeace have an oil spill? Yeah. Energy Transfer told CNBC that the jury verdict was a win for Americans. That's how they like to put this nonsense. Somehow we're helping Americans to not be able to protest, who understand the difference between the right to free speech and breaking the law. You've got to be kidding me. We are very pleased that Greenpeace has been held accountable for their actions against us, but this win is also for the people abandoned and throughout North Dakota who had to live through daily harassment and disruptions caused by the protesters who are funded and trained by Greenpeace, the company said in a statement. Wow. What about Tulsi Gabbard? You going to sue her for bringing a bunch of veterans up to the DAPL protest? I'm sure there were a lot of other entities that were involved in this. But man, let's listen to this commentary from Stephen Donziger around this. He says in a deeply unfair trial, the Energy Transfer Pipeline Company won a verdict against Greenpeace today in North Dakota over phantom damages from the Standing Rock protests. This is an attack on indigenous peoples, the climate movement, and the right to protest.
Everybody, real quick, I want you to know that Greenpeace lost the trial in North Dakota to the Energy Transfer Pipeline Company. We expected this. The jury verdict is high. It's estimated to be about $700 million. Now, the question is, what do we do now? And I want to emphasize, this is just the first stage of the trial. There will be an appeal. I believe this trial was so unfair that Greenpeace is very likely to prevail on appeal. Please don't think this is because Greenpeace did anything wrong. They did not. They did a lot right in supporting the Standing Rock Sioux and the indigenous-led protests about the Dakota Access Pipeline. But it is very important the world rally behind Greenpeace right now, because Greenpeace really is a stand-in for the entire climate movement, the indigenous rights movement, and the right to protest in America. To learn more, go to trialmonitors.org. Greenpeace has a site called greenpeaceontrial.org. Please stay engaged. We can actually help Greenpeace win this case and strengthen the climate movement at the same time if we all get involved. Thank you. Everybody, real quick, I want you to know that Greenpeace...
All right. Rough stuff. They tried to justify the Ukraine war by saying it will stop Russian oil pollution. Okay. Yeah. So that is problematic. And the times we're living in. I heard also Georgia, Atlanta, is going to be making budget cuts because they spent all their money on Cop City. And now they're facing budget shortfalls. They had it, just like Los Angeles has a huge police budget, right? And they defunded the fire department. Not completely, but they took away a lot of the fire department budget. And the police budget in Los Angeles is enormous. And what happened when the wildfires broke out? There was not enough manpower, not enough resources in a very time sensitive situation. And so now Atlanta is going to cut the budget of like schools and other things, public projects, because they gave too much money to the police. I wonder what they're planning with all this police buildup and police, giving all the resources to police. Okay. JD Vance, a lot of people are surprised at this admission by JD Vance about what globalism actually means. And it's, some people are like, well, he's being honest. The truth is good. It is a bit of an admission, but I heard something else in here too that surprised me as well. But let's listen.
Because there were two conceits that our leadership class had when it came to globalization. The first is assuming that we can separate the making of things from the design of things. The idea of globalization was that rich countries would move further up the value chain while the poor countries made the simpler things. You would open an iPhone box and it would say designed in Cupertino, California. Now, the implication, of course, is that it would be manufactured in Shenzhen or somewhere else. And yeah, some people might lose their jobs in manufacturing, but they could learn to design, or to use a very popular phrase, learn to code. But I think we got it wrong. It turns out that the geographies that do the manufacturing get awfully good at the designing of things. There are network effects, as you all well understand. The firms that design products work with firms that manufacture. They share intellectual property, they share best practices, and they even sometimes share critical employees. Now, we assume that other nations would always trail us in the value chain, but it turns out that as they got better at the low end of the value chain, they also started catching up on the higher end. We were squeezed from both ends. Now, that was the first conceit of globalization. I think the second is that cheap labor is fundamentally a crutch, and it's a crutch that inhibits innovation. I might even say that it's a drug that too many American firms...
Hold on. Now, this part is surprising to me. This part is the part, and I didn't really see anybody else catch this. I caught it. He's saying cheap labor is a drug. He's saying cheap labor is the problem. Duh. No. Anyways, he's admitting to the fact that they have been seeking cheap labor outside of the U.S. and inside of the U.S. That's why we have the immigration policies that we do, even though it's, oh, we're going to stop this immigration, when the whole time they're like, come on in. Come on. Republican and Democrat alike. Come on in and undermine these unions. Come on in. While going, we've got to protect the American people. It's all a bunch of doublespeak nonsense. It's everything they're saying about this is absolutely nonsense. That's why it's hard for me to talk about it and not lose my mind. But I'm going to go back just a little bit. But this is an interesting. I don't know if it's an about face on the entire idea that we have been kind of propagandized to believe over the last 40 years or 50 years, that unions led to stagnation, that led to that brought down creativity or brought down efficiency, right? The lazy, unmotivated union guy who was getting paid too much, right? Like there's always a scapegoat. It's always a scapegoat. The welfare queen or the union guy who's making too much money. Right? It's like, it's ridiculous. But I remember this very, very vividly. Even though I was a child, I remember the rhetoric that was pumped out through the 70s and the 80s. Oh, we got to innovate, and we got to, look what they're doing in the Far East, and look what they're doing in other markets. They're innovating because they don't have the wage restrictions and the protections that U.S. workers have. So because of all that propaganda, again, this is manufacturing consent. They just pump out this narrative, and and the government goes, well, what are we going to do about this? Blah, blah, blah. And NAFTA was created, and other, they offshored outsourced all of our manufacturing to other countries and called it, a win. But really, it was just a win for the people, the owners, and it was absolute loss for the workers. Undermined unions, undermined well-paying manufacturing jobs, undermined basically the entire economy, while enriching the wealthy class, all under the guise of like, wow, we got to be more, we got to compete with China and Japan, this whole thing. And now JD Vance is going to tell you the exact opposite. This is wild. This is insane. It's insane that he's doing this, that he's saying, well, cheap labor is the drug. And man, that was wrong. That's bad. Oh, so 50 years later, you're going to go, oh yeah, we messed up there. And I will concur with, everyone who's like all these people are lying ass, about as shallow as, a couple of millimeter souls who will do anything for $1 and lie, cheat, and steal their way to the top and run over you to get there. So, you know, screw these people. Like, screw them. Anyways.
Got addicted to is fundamentally a crutch. And it's a crutch that inhibits innovation. I might even say that it's a drug that too many American firms.
Cheap labor is a crutch that inhibits innovation. This is the opposite of everything they told us in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s to get us to outsource all of our manufacturing somewhere else. Now he's saying, no, that's bad. What the? It's just so frustrating, y'all. It's absolutely frustrating. Okay.
Got addicted to. Now, if you can make a product more cheaply, it's far too easy to do that rather than to innovate. And whether we were offshoring factories to cheap labor economies or importing cheap labor through our immigration system, cheap labor became the drug of Western economies. And I'd say that if you look in nearly every country from Canada to the UK that imported large amounts of cheap labor, you've seen productivity stagnate. I don't think that's that's not a total happenstance. I think that the connection is very direct. Now, one of the debates you hear on the minimum wage, for instance, is that increases in the minimum wage force firms to automate. So a higher wage at McDonald's means more kiosks. And whatever your views on the wisdom of the minimum wage, I'm not going to comment on that here. Companies innovating in the absence of cheap labor is a good thing. I think most of you are not worried about getting cheaper and cheaper labor. You're worried about innovating, about building new things, about the old formulation of technology is doing more with less. You guys are all trying to do more with less every single day. And so I'd ask my friends.
It starts heading into gobbledygook. It's like, what? I don't know. We don't need to pay people to do jobs. Anyways.
Both on the tech optimist side and on the populist side, not to see the failure of the logic of globalization as a failure of innovation. Indeed, I'd say that globalization's hunger for cheap labor is a problem precisely because it's been bad for innovation. Both our working people, our populists, and our innovators gathered here today have the same enemy. And the solution, I believe, is American innovation.
Okay. Woo, all right. Laughable. That's a hoot. Let's read. A lot of people had a lot of opinions about this little snippet from JD Vance about the admission that they were looking to keep people in a poor state, or a lower living standard while they enrich themselves, which is I have a lovely forehead. Oh, thanks. I don't know what does that mean? All right. Vance explains that the idea of globalization was that rich countries would move further up the value chain while the poor countries made the simpler things. But he laments that it didn't quite work out this way. As he explains, it turns out the poor countries, mostly China, didn't want to just remain cheap labor forever and started moving up the value chain themselves, which is why, according to him, globalization was a failure, meaning the objective of globalization wasn't to reduce global inequalities, but very much to maintain them, to institute a system of permanent economic hierarchy where rich countries would maintain their hold over the most profitable sectors while relegating poor countries to perpetual subordination and lower value production. Yeah. Anyways.
Because there were two...
we don't need to listen to that again. You're right, Joseph Wood. No one is talking about stopping or downscaling industry or anything. No, they're not. Unfortunately, this isn't even the idea that we should downsize anything is not even on the table, which is why Elon Musk is trying to tell people to have babies. Man, I've gotten to the point where I actually kind of want to leave X for moral reasons. I actually, I saw Elon Musk agreeing with something that Netanyahu said about bombing Hamas to smithereens, and he was like, yeah. And it was at that moment I was like, man, I feel like I want to divest from this whole thing. The thing is that when you get to that point, it's like every platform is extremely problematic. Not every platform, but so many of them are. The majors are all very, very problematic. So what do you do? I don't know. You can use their platform against them, maybe. But man, that one made me kind of sick to my stomach. Right. We'd have real innovations if JP Morgan would have continued funding Tesla. Sure. Oh, all right, guys. If you like the show, so you got a couple more things to look at. But if you like the show and you appreciate what the show brings to you on the daily and community of chatting and news gathering and information gathering and all that kind of good stuff. If you like what you find here and you want it to keep on happening, a really good way to help in that endeavor is to support the show at any of the links in the description box. All the regular usual links are there: PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, Buy Me a Coffee, Ko-Fi, Patreon, and now Substack are all viable. Yeah, all these platforms are bad. I'm trying to figure out how to kind of escape, somewhat. I think the idea of using the platforms against them is fine. But sometimes I just don't want to be involved at all. Hallam's vid, I saw that in passing. I'll probably check it out. You're right. Peter Thiel and the gang want our data to train AI. By the way, yes, you're constantly training the AI data, by the way. And I'm sure helping in that endeavor. Don't necessarily feel good about that either. Anyways, a lot of you already support the show. You know who you are, and I thank you. All right, a couple more things before we get out of here. By the way, tomorrow, regular time on Substack, 12 p.m. I know I said 9 the other day. I apologize. Sorry for any confusion whatsoever, but tomorrow is at the regular time. Substack only stream tomorrow, 12 p.m. Pacific on Substack. Go over there, subscribe for free. The link is in the description box. Please and thank you. Let's leave X to the fake politicians. Yeah, I'm trying to get to some other different kinds of platforms that we can branch out to and feel a little bit better about what we're doing. And maybe, hopefully, not supporting these weirdos. Revolutionary blackout. According to the genocide conventions, not only should the states executing a genocide be held accountable, but all private entities assisting the genocide. Also, all states in compliance are obligated to do everything they can to stop said genocide, including going after private entities. Not only is what Yemen is doing in the Red Sea legal, they are clearly the only state in compliance and following the Genocide Convention. Thank you. I said that 3 days ago. I said Yemen is the only entity out there that's going, no, I'm not, no. We're not doing this and doing something about it. I know other, the ICC is making rulings and such and all that kind of good stuff. Thanks, Extra Bulla. I appreciate you, man. No, 12 p.m. What? No, tomorrow's show is at, oh, you're talking to Extra Bulla. Sorry. I'll stay out of that conversation. I said, I think I saw that, Gene.
Sure.
Hello. Oh, shoot. Man, so that's interesting. Okay, I got it back. Sorry. Is it back? Please let me know if my audio is back. That is very strange. Hello? Let me know if my audio is back. Thank you. My picture went away for a second. That's very weird, man. Just total silence? Hello? Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me now? It should be on. I'll give you guys a second. I know there's a delay. So just let me know if it's back on. Hello. It's okay now? All right. Is the sound back on? Just checking. Let me know if the sound is back on. Let me know if the sound is back on, please. Yeah, that was really weird. That was kind of strange. It did what it did the other day where it turned off my camera. And then all my buttons froze. Oh, I'm okay now? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Interesting. Last post, and then I'm going to leave y'all for tomorrow. No, come on now. Can you guys? Nope. Glenn Greenwald, liberals spent years screeching that anyone talking about the deep state was spewing fringe conspiracy theories, as if Sean Hannity invented them. Meanwhile, JFK's top advisor, a year after Eisenhower's 1960 warning, warned the CIA had become a state within a state. Here's a thread by Holden Kulata. President Trump just exposed Arthur Schlesinger's full 15-page memo calling for JFK to break up the CIA in 1961. Schlesinger called the CIA a rogue state within a state. No one knows how many potential problems are being created by CIA clandestine operations. Schlesinger said, the contemporary CIA possesses many of the characteristics of a state within a state. There is no doctrine governing our conduct or of clandestine operations. Schlesinger slammed the idea that the CIA should fight fire with fire to defeat communism. If fighting fire with fire means contracting the freedoms traditionally enjoyed by Americans in order to give more freedom to the CIA, no one seriously wishes to do that. He also said CIA operations have not been held effectively subordinate to U.S. foreign policy. In short, no one knows how many potential problems for U.S. foreign policy and how much potential friction with friendly states are being created at this moment by CIA clandestine intelligence operations. In practice, Schlesinger told JFK the State Department had become a rubber stamp for CIA clandestine operations. Concept of contingency planning has legitimized the concrete preparation of operations, still presumably in a hypothetical stage. If a group is assembled and revved up on a contingency basis, then the failure to carry the project through, it is argued, will invite the disappointment and alienation of the group. CIA has effectively made policy in many parts of the world. Made policy. A number of governments still in power know that they have been targets of CIA attempts at overthrow, not a state of mind calculated to stimulate friendly feelings towards the U.S. No, duh. Schlesinger recalled Assistant Secretary of State for Inter-American Affairs Thomas C. Mann's reaction to the botched Bay of Pigs invasion. I would never have favored initiating this operation, but since it has gone as far as it has, I do not think we can risk calling it off. Schlesinger proposed that JFK decouple the CIA's clandestine operations from its research and analysis work. If intelligence is too closely connected with operations, then those committed to a particular operation will tend to select out the intelligence which validates the operation. In conclusion, Schlesinger proposed a drastic overhaul of the State Department to rein in CIA clandestine operations. State Department would be granted general clearance authority over all clandestine activity. Schlesinger also proposed splitting the CIA into two agencies, one for clandestine and paramilitary activities and another for information and collection and analysis. Don't we have like 17 intelligence agencies now? Something like that. Some ridiculous number. Like, do we need? Is that really necessary? 1 month after JFK's assassination, former President Harry Truman echoed Schlesinger's fears outlined in his 1961 memo. There is something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is casting a shadow over our historic position. Truman wrote that he set up the CIA to streamline information gathering at times. The intelligence reports tended to be slanted to conform to established positions of a given department. But between his presidency and JFK's, Truman witnessed a change in the CIA. For some time, I've been disturbed by the way the CIA has been diverted from its original assignment. It has become an operational and at times a policy-making arm of the government. I never had any thought that when I set up the CIA that it would be injected into peacetime cloak and dagger operations. Truman called for the termination of the CIA's operational duties and the restoration of the agency to its original assignment as the intelligence arm of the president. Yeah. All right. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate you. Thanks for showing up every day and making this show go, because the show does not go without you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Substack only stream tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific. Go on over and subscribe to Substack if you haven't already. I don't know if I have anybody to thank today. Let's see. I don't think so. All right, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your day, and until next time.
Mm-hmm.